Hey Scott, since we're going through this little project together with the space station, I figured I would kind of show you a little bit about what I did inside of After Effects so that you could figure out how to use the program better to enhance your renderings. What I did basically was hop onto Sci-Fi 3D and grab this Regula 1 model, and I just simply rendered out 100 frames inside of 3D Max. And here's basically what it looks like. As you can see, I rendered this out with an alpha channel, so I don't have to worry about masking things out or luma matting or anything like that. So just a render, and this is your toggle transparency switch right here, so you can see whether or not it's got anything in the background. So that's the station. And what I wanted to do obviously was composite it into my scene. So similar to what you do with AEC files, I imported the scene file from 3D Max through a different program, which is basically a way to get the camera data in so that I can match up everything in the background with the camera move. And what I also did was kind of position a planet in the background a long way away from the camera and the scene, so that you get the right parallax when you're kind of zooming around this space station. And then I put a helper object in the scene to kind of figure out where that point in space is going to be, since I wanted to put a planet here in After Effects without having to render it out inside of 3D Max or any other 3D program. So like I told you, you could do this and it looks pretty good. I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so what I'll just basically do is grab this, delete that out. The star field I'll leave simply because it's just I'll just start from scratch. And we'll pull Regula out, and alright, so basically when I opened up the scene file, this is what I had: a camera and a helper layer. And the helper layer is just something in 3D space to help me figure out where to put that planet. So the first thing I wanted to do was to drop in my rendered space station, so I dropped that in, and then I can drop in just a star map in the background. If you want to, you can make it 3D, but then you'll have to push it way back in space, and I'm just going to leave it as is for now. But really the thing I want to show you was the planetary creation. So let's go create a new composition, and this one will make 1200 by 1200, and we'll call this planet, and make sure the duration is set to at least as long as your composition is, and click OK. And I'll drop this down to about 50%. Now I've got this map of Mars, which is fairly high res. It's 4000, basically a 4K by 2K map. So we'll drop that in, and you can see it's pretty decent detail. What I want to do is go to Effect, Perspective, CC Sphere, and that'll basically map it to a circle. And we can adjust the radius of this by just increasing the slider here, or you can just simply type it in. I'm going to go to 550 on this. Okay, what I've done is left a little bit of room outside so we can add in an atmosphere. Now if we go back to our comp here, get rid of this, go back to our comp, you can see that the sunlight is basically coming in at a kind of an angle from right about up here. So we want to try to match that with the planet as best we can. So you go down here to the light settings, and this is where you can change the light direction so that's coming and striking the planet where we want it. That's a little high. There we go. And then the light height you can change to wrap it either more around the planet or less around the planet. And I want a pretty good difference between the day and the night side, so we'll leave it maybe about 40. Where it was to begin with. Maybe a little less, 35, because we're not going to be using the whole planet. The next thing we can do is, you can see here we've got a lot of ambient light bouncing there. If you go to the shading dialog box, you can see that by default ambient is set to 10. You can drop that down to 0 and turn that side pure black, which looks, I think, a lot better, more realistic, unless you have a light source coming from the side. And if you look at our rendering here, it's pretty dark, so it doesn't look like there's any ambient light coming from the background. So we'll try to match that up. So that's the planet. The next thing I want to do is to drop in an atmosphere and some clouds. So what you can do is you can select your layer and either hit Edit, Duplicate, or Control D, which is a lot faster. And this will basically duplicate that layer. But now what we want to do is put in the clouds, and I have this 8K spherical cloud map that I've downloaded online, so we'll use that. And so what I'm going to do is hit Control-Alt/, and it will basically replace the map that I have here with the map up there. So you can also hit, I think, Control and drag and drop like that, but it's easier just hit Control-Alt/. I want to change the transfer mode of this from normal to screen. What that'll do is basically allow anything that's black to become transparent, anything that's pure white become opaque, and anything kind of in the middle gray will be semi-transparent. We want to probably pop this up off the surface of the planet just a little bit, so we'll do that by adjusting the radius of this. So the radius is set to 550. Let's go 552 and see what that does. Yeah, we just pushed it just slightly off, so it looks like it's floating above instead of right on the planet. The next thing we want to do is adjust for our, or actually create our atmosphere. And once again, I'm going to just hit Control D to duplicate this. And instead of using, actually, let's not do that. Let's just delete that out. Let's just create a new solid layer. Layer, new solid. And let's pick kind of a lighter color of the planet to try to match it up as best we can. And we'll call this atmosphere. And just for simplicity, let's just copy Control-C and paste Control-V the sphere on there. And let's increase the radius to something a little bit bigger, maybe like 560. And I wonder what happened to it. It's very odd. Effect, we'll just drop a CC. There we go. I don't know what happened to that. Radius 560. And once again, we want to copy our light settings. So we'll change this back around like that. On our shading, we're going to go to 0. Our light height, we'll drop this down even more to probably 20, so we just want this kind of a crescent right here. And you can play if you want more intensity, brighter on that side. And if you just want a little bit of a crescent, you can do, whoops, not 150, there we go. Alright, so we've got the atmosphere, but atmospheres are pretty hazy, so instead of this really sharp edge here, we'll zoom in so we can see. We got a really sharp edge here, and if we turn this from normal to screen, you can see that it just doesn't look right. So let's blur that out by going Effect, Blur and Sharpen right up here, and we'll just throw a fast blur on there. Now we want to blur this maybe 10 pixels. Or maybe even more if you want a really kind of hazy look. And you can play with the radius of this to get the right look that you want. If you want to pull the atmosphere in and make it a lot thinner, you can do that right here. Alright, so you got basically this kind of cool haze going around the planet. So it looks like a pretty good atmosphere. Alright, so let's hop back over to our comp here, and what I want to do is grab our planet comp and drop it in below Regula, which is the space station right there. So right now it's not 3D, it's just a static image, so when the camera moves, the only thing that moves is the space station. But that doesn't really sell the shot as well, because it looks like we're not changing anything whatsoever in perspective with the planet. That's why I have this helper layer. So if we hit P to reveal the position of the planet layer, you can see it is way, 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 way back from where the center point of the camera or the scene is right now, which the Z space is, I can't even read that, 2 million or something like that. We want to do the same thing with the planet, so we'll hit P. We want to line these up. So we'll grab the position, hit Control C to copy, grab this position, hit Control V to paste, and it put it, well, I forgot to turn it to 3D layer, my bad. We'll try that again. Control V. So now the planet's way the heck back there, but it's really small. So hit Scale, and we'll scale this up maybe 10,000. Still small. 100,000. It's getting better. Let's add one more zero. I guess 1 million. There we go. That looks better. But as you can see, that we've got the planet facing the wrong way. And a cool thing you can do inside of After Effects is make sure that any 2D layer that you want to be in 3D space always faces the camera by right-clicking with it selected and choosing Transform Auto Orient, and then you want to orient it towards the camera and click OK, and then it'll line it up the way that you want. Now the scale is a little bit big right now, so we'll go from 10 to 5, so we got like 500,000, and boom, there you go. You've got your planet, you've got your space station, you got your nice atmospheric haze, you got your clouds, and it's starting to look pretty good. But one of the things that I like to do is try to integrate these components together as best you can, and one real easy way to do that is by adding an overall glow and having some of this light bleed on or bleed over top of your layers in front. So what I'm going to do is add an adjustment layer by choosing Layer, New Adjustment Layer. And what an adjustment layer is basically a layer which goes over top and modifies everything in the stack below it. So it'll modify this star field, it'll modify the planet, and modify Regula, the space station. So what I want to do is add a glow to this to try to highlight some of the brighter portions of the planet here, and also maybe kick it up a little bit on here on the space station. So we'll go Effect, Stylize, Glow, and instantly you can see it just kind of blew everything out. I really want the radius really big because I want this to kind of blur together, and as you can see, depending on the look that you want, you can end up getting some pretty neat color gradients, which is a really nice side effect of using glow. It's a little intense though, so we can probably dial that back at 0.25, and you just get a little bit of glow up here, kind of a reddish orange, which is pretty neat. You can also adjust this by increasing the threshold. So right now, anything that is 60% pure white will glow. Anything in the 60% below, 59% below won't. So if you increase this, it will only limit the glow to only the brightest areas. And then you can, play with these other settings if you want to bring that glow back up. And that's pretty cool. I like that. So what you can see here is the glow on the planet is actually bleeding over top of the space station and causing the colors to kind of blend together and meld, which is I think a pretty cool look. You're also getting some bleed into space, so it makes it look like the atmosphere is kind of casting some light out here too. So I think it's coming off a little bit too bright there, and we'll just punch that back a little bit. Okay, now one last thing that you can do is if you think the image is too saturated, which oftentimes renders coming out of 3D programs are, there's another handy little tip. You can choose Effect, Color Correction, Tint, and what this does, it basically maps everything to black and white. Then using the amount to tint, you can really tweak the settings and pull it back to kind of the saturation level that you want. You could use hue and saturation, but I think tint does a little bit better job. So there you go. There's also a lot of other things that you can do. For example, like I threw some film grain on our last project render, which ties things together a little bit better too. Doesn't make it look so clean and neat. And the way you do that is hit Effect, let's see, Noise, I believe, Noise and Grain, Add Grain. You'll get a little preview image right here in the middle because it takes a while to render. You can change the viewing mode from preview to final output, and then it adds grain across the entire thing. You can see the default is really grainy. We don't really want it that much, so you can decrease the intensity maybe down to 0.3, and you'll introduce just a little bit of artifacting. You can see here in the glow, you can see you got a little bit of artifacting, and as this plays through on a render, it'll just have that little bit of faint film grain, which will make it look like something that's more realistic as opposed to a render that's really way too clean to look like it was shot on film. Also, you can see in the dark areas you're going to get much more of the grain than in the light areas. So anyway, I hope this made a lot of sense. One of the things I was talking about to you was using Luma mats, and I've rendered out a, let's see, regular one. I thought I rendered those out. Hold on. Bear with me here. 3D Max. Yeah, Luma. Interpret footage. Gotta match up the footage rate with, or the film rate with the comp rate. There we go. Alright, so what I'm going to do is take this composition and pre-comp it by dragging it into a new composition. And this basically acts as if you've just rendered everything out so it looks like this, without the ability to separate the components, which is basically the render you gave me. And what I want to do is to basically take this and separate out just the space station. And I've got this Luma of Luma mat that I made. Like I told you, basically make everything a white image except for the background, which is black, stuff that you don't want to render. So if you turn this on, you can see that it's white. Technically, it should have a black background, but that's fine. There's two different ways that you can do this. Number one, you have an alpha channel in this Luma render, and what you can do, I told you the track mat is where you do it. You can click this down and say use the alpha mat of Luma Regula, or the map above it, and it'll isolate just that portion that has the white. And as you can see, we do have a lot of bleed over of that glow. So once you isolate it, you can tell it's much different. Another thing you could do is use the Luma mat of the above layer, which does a little bit better job, in my opinion, of isolating that out. You can see if we toggle the transparency, it isolates just the space station. And then finally, you've got the inverted, so you can do alpha inverted, so you'll basically punch a hole in it and only select the portion of that image that doesn't have the white in it, so you're selecting the black. And this would be handy if you wanted to separate the two elements out, like let's just duplicate these, hit Control D, and then we'll go alpha matte and then alpha inverted. So now you have both of them. So if I wanted to take this and say effect color correction, let's just go hue and saturation, and we can adjust or fine-tune the space station hue independent of the background. Or, you know, you can do the same thing with the background layers if you wanted to. So that's the way that you can isolate different elements inside of After Effects, even if you've already rendered it out as a complete composite to begin with. Obviously, it's much better if you don't have holes inside your elements here, because, like I said yesterday, there may come a point in time where you basically just want to take this and move it a little bit, and then if you have it using this method, you have that big hole in there that's really hard to fix. But if you render out all the different passes for the different elements, then you can kind of move things around, or if something's just a little bit off, you can adjust it inside of After Effects and not have to re-render everything out at the same time. So anyway, hopefully this made sense to you. If you have any questions, you know where to find me, and I will talk to you later. See you, man.